everyone. Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Quick video today, I think, um, which it's not a difficult topic. It's just sort of a moving target. And I was on a Facebook group, an audiophile group, and we actually got into like a little bit of a debate. And you'd be astounded by how heated audiophiles can be about topics. To somebody that's not an audiophile or isn't into that kind of thing, I'm sure their thought is like, but it's audio gear. How does anybody get like mad, or how does anybody get upset over a topic like that? Well, you'd be astounded by how heated people can be about quote unquote controversial topics in audio. So we were having a bit of a debate about, what is an audiophile? And I'm going to explain what I think an audiophile is. But one of the issues consistently about audiophiles, or what people think maybe that are a little bit outside or whatever, think that audiophile or being an audiophile has to do with money, with how much you spend, with spending huge amounts of money, relatively speaking, to what is a huge amount of money for you on audio gear, and that you can't really be an audiophile if you're not able or willing to spend a lot of money on gear. And for a lot of people, that sort of keeps them feeling on the outside, like they're not able to be an audiophile or enjoy discussing audio with people and that type of thing. And that's completely false. So with that in mind, I'm a little bit of a background, if you don't mind, a little context here to how my own developing audiophilia, like if that's a term, so I come from a long line of musicians. My father was a child prodigy. He started playing the violin when he was 5 or 6. He's probably the most famous musician in my family. My father was the founder of the Boston Classical Orchestra. He was the head of the New England Conservatory of Music. Not the director. I forget what his title was. So he played all over the world and all so on and so forth. So, but my sister, my cousins, my aunt, these are all classically trained musicians, well known in their own right. So I grew up with not just with music, hearing music, always loved music. I have an ear for music. I'm not a musician. Frankly, I just didn't have the patience. I would love to have been able to play an instrument, but my ADD and stuff as a kid would not let me sit still long enough to learn. But so music has always been a deep part of my life. And I was like 7 or 8, something like that. And for Christmas, I asked my father for a radio or stereo. I don't remember what I asked, but something to play music. I didn't know what I was asking for, but I just knew I wanted something that I could play music. And my father got me this. I don't even know what the brand was. I think it was from Radio Shack or something, but it was like this blue speaker. It had like one speaker. It was an 8-track player. He got me, and I remember very clearly, he got me the Beatles' Lonely Hearts Club Band 8-track, and that was Christmas. And I loved it, and I played this thing incessantly. Literally, that was like my one 8-track, and that's all I had to listen to, and all I really cared about. I think to the point that it probably drove everybody kind of nutty. Because I think they hit it on me at one point. I just remember not being able to find it, and I was pretty sure they had hit it. Anyway, so that's my beginning, and even from that day, I wanted, always was striving to own gear that sounded better, that improved the audio to my ear. And in the next Christmas, again, I asked for something, better, and got something a bit better. And as a teenager, I saved my money and bought this boombox. I remember a Zenith boombox. I loved this thing. It was, at the time, it was like the height of boomboxes. Most people are probably not old enough watching this to remember how popular boomboxes were. Remember, there was no headphones, there was no Walkmans. I mean, when I first saw my first Walkman, I could not believe all that sound and all that audio was in this little tiny six, cassette playing with a headphone. That was mind-boggling technology at the time. Anyway, so I had my boombox, and again, to me, this thing was the height of audio. I mean, I would literally like listen to it critically. I'd put it at the head of my bed. I'd lie with the speakers like right on either side of me, and for what we would call near field listening. I didn't know what there was a term for it at the time, but that and to me, to my ears and stuff, it sounded great. And again, and I worked, as time went on, I sold it to a buddy. He wanted the boom box. I got something with actually some separate speakers, and on it went. So the point I'm really trying to make here is that a love not just love of music, but a need, a requirement to listen to that, to get the music, the sound of the audio is as good as you can get it. You know, um, Now I tend to think of audio gear or audio files or whatever very similar to musicians, in that obviously musicians are going to want the best instruments that they can get, what they can afford, whatever it may be, because obviously it's going to sound better. Their efforts are going to sound better. My father had a Stradivarius that that his father had bought him, um, which they weren't. I mean, they weren't. It was not inexpensive, obviously, but as time went on, Stradivarius's. My father actually ended up selling his Stradivarius because he said I just couldn't. I was so paranoid about even traveling with this violin. For those who don't know, Stradivarius is a violin, the most famous of all violins. Uh, by the time my father sold his violin in the 80s, I think in the 80s. I mean, it was. I think he sold it for like $200,000, or maybe closer to $300,000. Now they're worth astounding amounts of money. So my father basically said it was the best, by far the best sounding violin he had ever heard. But he got to the point where he said it just made him so paranoid. He just wasn't even playing as well. It was like on his mind. So he actually ended up. I'm going a little sidetrack if you don't mind. He sent the violin off to a very well-known maker to have the Stradivarius sort of copied. He had two of them made. One cost him quite a bit of money to produce this violin. Another one was a lesser sort of practice violin. So my point being is that I tend to look at audiophile gear, especially speakers. I think speakers is where my mind is going here. But regardless, as what musicians see musical instruments in that sense. So what is an audiophile? An audiophile, again, is someone who doesn't just enjoy music. The music is that much enhanced to them by how the quality of the sound, the quality of the audio that they're getting, and it really impacts their enjoyment, regardless of what they spent, how they went about it, um, and for example, I mean, for myself, and some people might not notice. For myself, if I'm listening to music I like on some crappy uh, uh, radio, or like car radio or something, it really degrades my enjoyment. I'm not really going to enjoy this music in an involved way that I normally would. Conversely, I have to admit that I can, on a really high end system, I can actually listen if the recording is a high quality master and all that. There's a lot that goes on to really getting quality. But if I can actually listen to songs that I don't really like that much, but I'm so enjoying the song or the music, whatever it is, because the system is so good. There is some, audiophiles always have tracks that they will listen to that may not actually be their favorite music. However, it is the music that um, exposes the quality of the system they're listening to, that it really brings the system out. And I have a number of tracks that, some of them are songs I love or whatever, but a number of tracks that are just tracks that are about pushing the limits, or getting the limits, the best of the system. I listened to a system not that long ago that was probably about $500,000. The speakers alone, Wilson speakers, were 350K a pair. That's high end. Um, and it was, as you would expect, pretty mind-boggling system. But the music that they put on, this was at a audio store. The music they put on was not great music. It was very specifically designed to get the best from the system. So what is an audiophile? An audiophile, again, is nothing to do with money. Yes, audiophiles can and do often spend huge amounts of money, but you are an audiophile if you have a system that you really enjoy, that you have strived to you want to get the most from it, whether it's changing out things like cables and speaker wire and interconnects, which is another topic. Most of that's fairy dust, but another topic for another day. And that's really it. That's all you have to do to be an audiophile. Somebody who the gear itself is as important to you, sometimes more so, but is just as important to you as the music itself to your enjoyment. And I think, again, the parallel to musical instruments for musicians is very appropriate, and maybe helps align what that is to audiophiles. So, I just wanted to throw that out there so that no one watching this or anyone that gets turned off by how expensive, getting into audio can be, that there is no price tag. There's no, and I think also some audiophiles, not most, but some audiophiles can be snobs. But honestly, again, I think most people will find that if they're interested in audio and they have questions, which I can try to answer. I'm not an expert compared to some people, to be honest with you. But I think most people find that they may be a little intimidated, or think that audiophiles or whatever are going to be snobby or nasty, or put them down for their choices. It's really not usually the case. Most of the time, again, audiophiles are really happy to give advice. Really don't care. Have no negative opinions on what you own or what you spend, and are happy to help. And people should not feel off put or intimidated or whatever about thinking that. And I will tell you that if you're on like an audio forum or something, and somebody does, some member does, have a snarky comment about, what you bought or what you like, the other people, I can tell you, the other 99% of them will jump down their throat and say, hey, don't be a dickhead. Don't be a snob. This person's, they're new, or, they've got questions, or let's help them get the best bang for their buck and what they're spending and all that. So don't get pushed away. So that's my definition of an audiophile, and I hope that's helps. Your definition of an audiophile, leave it below. I'm happy if you have a different viewpoint on what an audiophile is, but it has nothing to do with how much money you spend, what gear you own. A lot of that, of course, is very relative. And another point I will just add is to say that modern technology also allows people now to spend surprisingly little to get really some pretty impressive audio. I mean, I've made recordings of I have two systems. One is my main system. One is my budget system, and that budget system is well under $1,000 total, and it sounds really good. It's enjoyable. I can get an enjoyable experience. It is commendably good, and you really, again, do not have to spend a lot of money. What you do have to do is do your research and be smart about, like anything, do a bit of research and be smart about where you put your money and all that. It's easy to go in directions where you're not getting great bang for your buck. I do have a video here about like my advice for getting into audio. My budget way to get into it. I'll link it at the end of this, and you can go check that out. And it's the easiest way that I'm aware of to get into decent audio for let's say under $1,000. Okay, that's it. I hope that that helps, and I'll see you guys on the Brink Zone. And please like this if you agree, and follow the Brink Zone. Thanks.